Welcome back to Parents Perspective with Mike and Amy, part of the St. Clair County Speak Youth Coalition. And we just talked a little bit ago with our previous segment about unpredictability and different ways that we can handle these things. And as we were talking about some of the things like organization and communication, there was something that we were talking about, Amy and I were just speaking about recently, dealing with time management. And so I know for a lot of folks, this is a very taxing time. And many cases, a lot of people seem to like go from crisis mode to just chill mode. Okay. So going from running 100-mile-an-hour to just sitting around watching Netflix. And one of the things I want to do is share some things I learned going through reading the book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, is focusing on time management. So Amy, as far as the quadrants go, they said there's 4 main quadrants. Quadrant 1 is going to be things that are important and urgent. So crisis mode, right now, things we got to do. Quadrant 2 are going to be things that are important but not urgent. They're things that we do on a regular basis to give ourselves the time to get things in place so that way we're not rushing. Quadrant 3 is going to be things that are not important but are urgent, like when kids are tugging on your pant leg saying, hey, I got this homework assignment that's due tomorrow that I had all month to do. Can you help me? And then the phone calls that just pop up, like we know about with phone calls just popping up randomly. And then quadrant 4 is going to be not important, not urgent. This is where we can just kind of sit and chill, like watch TV, relax, have a good time, go outside and play. There's nothing's going on. Amy, going through those real quickly, where do you find yourself at times with those things?
Well, unfortunately, Mike, I believe I need to take one of your classes because I am usually working in number 1, urgent and crisis. I need my own advice here. I want to tell you that I am, I might be a preventionist and I'm blessed enough to be able to research and kind of do some study and have some skills to apply, but I need to apply them in my own personal life as well. So unfortunately, I think that I really need to take into consideration those different quadrants of time, because I think what you're talking about here is balance. And certainly during COVID times, uncertainty, virtual versus in-person school and going back and forth, if we can learn to, prioritize, I think is what you're talking about, really important things that can't wait, some that can, and then trying to also think forward. I think we have to help model thinking forward for our kids. I mean, basically, isn't that what you're doing as a parent, is you're teaching them how the thinking process? Because if we can teach that, they're going to be more independent and make better decisions. So when we help them anticipate what might happen next, sometimes I go through like, okay, well, what you adjust to changes really well in playing the outfield, right? You adjust where you are going to stand depending on the batter that's coming up, right? That kid can hit. So what do? You back up. You anticipate that he's going to hit that ball harder because he's capable of that. And you make those adjustments. You're fast on your feet. You can move over. You can grab a pop-up and slide over for it. So the same thing we kind of have to do, but apply it to other day life. Hey, you know what? You're a procrastinator. You don't like to get up in the morning. So what could you do tonight that would prepare you better for tomorrow, so you don't have to think or have such a big list of responsibilities and to-dos tomorrow? So I think time management is really, really important in reducing some of that stress. So I could apply some of that to me for sure.
I love that you use the sports analogy there as well, too, because to me, sports teach a lot about just consistency and preparation. And think of all your favorite athletes growing up. Like for right now, like for me, one of my favorites now currently would be like Steph Curry. This is a guy that shoots every single day, hundreds of shots before he even gets out on the court. And I think as adults, we've got to be able to start practicing certain things as well, too, so they can become our habits. And time management is going to be one of those big pieces. We have to sit down and realize what are the things today that are most important. And so when you look at our roles that we're playing, our jobs, our family situations, the people that are most important of our lives, looking at the things that we've got to accomplish, focusing on those key areas. As you'll see with Covey, he calls them the big rocks, those really important things. What are the things that I got to do today? And out of all of those, which ones are the most urgent? Which ones are the most important? That's where we start prioritizing. They use an ABC 1, 2, 3 approach. So A1, think steak sauce. A1 is going to be that number one thing that you got to do that day, and you tackle that. And when you get down to the C3s, basically the chill on the couch, have fun. You got to have time for yourself to do those things, but is now the time? I think with COVID, and I think with a lot of the unpredictability that's going on because of all kinds of things, we might have to reestablish what's more important, so that way we can share with our kids, these things are critical, these things have got to get done, and then we're going to have time for this. We also at some point have to realize too that maybe that downtime for ourselves is an A1 that day, so we don't get exhausted. They talk about sharpening the saw. If you don't sharpen the teeth on those saws, they're not going to cut right. And if you're not giving yourself time to recuperate, you're not going to operate right. So we've got to sit down and actually write those things in. And by the way, I know I'm doing this thing with my fingers right here, the writing. Maybe it's weird if you hold your pencil like that. I don't know. It works for me. Writing things down sometimes reinforces a different part of your brain than when you type. And I find a lot of times if I write it, I remember it better than if I plug it on a phone. Because if I forget my phone or the battery dies on it, I don't have that accessibility, where if I write it, I remember it better if I've got it in a notebook. That just works for me. But if it works better for you to type it in, go for it. The key thing is to make sure that you daily go through your things that you got to do and mark them down. And I actually used to take a day, we used to call it a day of planning once a month, when I had a job where I was doing a lot of various things going on, that unpredictability, if you will. Take a couple hours and get all those big things down, but then daily look at that and ask, all right, did I get this done? And if something big didn't get done that day, add it to the next day and then reevaluate, what are those things I got to do? I think if we establish that right off the bat as a proper habit, and our children see that, they might be a little bit better prepared to deal with these things that pop up. So that way our household, all these other things are manageable. So we're not reacting. And then when they're stressed about their day, now we're adding that to our stress, coupled with the fear mongering that's going on social media. Now we're in a tizzy. I think it's just easier if we have some predictability ourselves, because we manage it that way. That can help with a lot of that. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that, Amy?
Well, what I'm hearing from you, and you maybe didn't phrase it this way, but I think it is so important, critical, that we model and teach our kids to set goals. So in other words, that list that I hated that my mother would write for me to do while she was at work, I hated it, but it taught me that these were the goals for today. We were to work on it together as my siblings and I, and it was very rewarding when you could physically check it off. So I think setting goals, prioritizing and then managing time, those are key skills that our kids, maybe we could frame it in, hey, you want to be independent one day, you want to run your own life, how are you ever going to do okay at a trade school if you stay away, or when you get your own apartment, you want to really groom those independent skills. And those are critical skills to our kids managing their lives really altogether one day. So I think framing it into an independent thing and then coming together and working on those things together, it creates that feeling that I'm not alone in this. My parents do support me. We have common goals that we're going to get through this together. So yeah, total agreed. I love this conversation, Mike. And honestly, I'd like to continue it next time, because I think these are some really great things. So check us out next week on Speak. And this is our youth coalition provided by Region 10 and other local community businesses. And if you ever think that you want to join Speak, you can definitely get a hold of us on social media